6 o'clock. Call to order the Berkeley County Planning Commission meeting for July 5th, 2022. Have Sarah do the roll call, please.
Eddie Gokenauer.
Here.
Linda Barnhart. Eric Goff.
Here.
Katrina Norton.
Present.
Tim Lewis.
Present.
Daniel Gant. Nick Deep.
Thank you. We still have a quorum, so we'll move on. We have approval of the agenda. There are no changes that I'm aware of.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Goff and a second by Mr. Gokenauer to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sunshine Law speakers. Anyone sign up to speak about anything other than what's on the agenda tonight? No. Okay, thank you. And we'll move on with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve minutes from June 21, 2022. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gokenauer and a second by Mr. Goff to approve the minutes of the June 21st, 2022 Council Planning Commission meetings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have 7 public hearings. If you're here to speak about those and you're a member of a homeowners association or someplace, something similar to that, we ask that you have a spokesperson. We want to give everybody an opportunity to speak tonight that we can. We don't want to hear the same concerns listed over and over and over again. It's a matter of time. These meetings sometimes can drag on for a while. We just want to make sure we're taking into consideration everybody's views. So we'll start with public hearing Smoots Nursery for sketch plan advancement.
Yes, this is a public hearing, a request for sketch plan advancement. The project is Smoots Nursery. It's file number 2202-065. The developer is Marty Smoot, and the engineer is the Thrasher Group. It's located at Arden District, Tax Map 10, Parcel 38. This site is located at 243 Painesford Road, approximately 1,300 feet from Winchester Avenue. This project proposes a commercial nursery on approximately 4.8 acres to be served by public water and sewer. There are no waivers or exceptions that have been requested. On June 3rd, 2022, the county engineer Doug Smith issued a letter of approval stating that a review of the above-mentioned project was completed and found to be in compliance with the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance. Staff recommends that the sketch plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, we recommend an advancement of the sketch plan to the prelim plan stage.
Do we have anybody here to represent the project?
Rob Milne with the Thrasher Group.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so if you have any objections or have any concerns you wish to voice, please step forward, state your name and your address.
Seeing none, sir, make a motion the public hearing be closed. Second.
We have a first by Councilman Gokenauer and a second by Mr. Goff to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Many members, do you have any questions for the Thrasher Group on Smoots Nursery?
Hearing no questions, sir, make a motion that we accept staff recommendation for advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage. Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gokenauer and a second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendations and advance the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage on Smoots Nursery. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The second hearing tonight is for BFS Warm Springs sketch plan advancement.
This is a request for sketch plan advancement. The project is BFS Warm Springs. The file number is 2202-053. The developer is BFS Companies and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located at the Opequon District, Tax Map 6, Parcel 8. This is located at the intersection of Mid-Atlantic Parkway, Warm Springs Avenue, and Edwin Miller Boulevard. This project proposes a 6,832 square foot convenience store and fast food restaurant on approximately 2 acres to be served by public water and sewer. At the June 6, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted a waiver to Section 503-B of the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance requiring a front setback of 50 feet. On May 2nd, 2022, County Engineer Doug Smith issued a letter of approval stating that a review of the above-mentioned project was completed and found to be in compliance with the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance. Staff recommends that this does meet the subdivision ordinance and therefore can be advanced from the sketch plan to the prelim plan stage.
Again, this is anyone here to represent the product?
Good evening. Steve Sianovich with Fox and Associates, representing the applicant.
Thanks, Steve. This is a public hearing. If you have any concerns or anything you wish to share on this project, please step forward, state your name and your address.
Seeing no one stepping forward, move to close public hearing.
Is there a motion? A second? We have a motion by Mr. Goff and a second by Councilman Gokenhour to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Council or chamber members, do you have any questions for Steve or the applicant?
No questions, sir. Make motion that we accept staff recommendation for advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to accept the staff recommendations for advancement of the sketch plan to the preliminary plan stage on BFS Warm Springs. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like size for no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The third public hearing is Cardinal Point, Section 2, final plat approval.
Yes, this is a request for final plat determination. The project is Cardinal Point Section 2, Phase 2, lots 516 through 527, 552 through 575, and 600 through 611. The file number is 2204-108. The developer is Panhandle Homes, and the engineer is Fox and Associates. This project is located at the Falling Waters District, Tax Map 9, Parcel 11.7. The property is located along the north side of Hammonds Mill Road, west of St. Andrews Drive. This final plat proposes 48 townhome lots on 4.77 acres to be served by public water and sewer. And I'm missing a page.
There you go.
Oh, at the bottom, sorry. Staff recommends that the final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $584,217.60. The plat is to be released upon receipt of surety. Sorry about that.
Anyone to represent the project?
Steve Sianovich with Fox and Associates, representing the applicant.
Again, this is a public hearing. If you have anything, concerns you wish to voice on Panhandle Homes Cardinal Point Section 2, please step forward, state your name and your address.
Sure. Joseph Newcomer, 71 Porch Light, Hedgesville in the development. I realize this is final plat approval and it's going to go through. But what you guys need to know is all the explosions that Panhandle was doing is shaking the homes, breaking the drywall, popping the studs, cracking concrete in the basement. And whenever you go to them, they say, don't look at us. Then when something breaks, you go to Ryan. Ryan says, you're out of warranty, go to Panhandle. You don't know they're doing it, so I called Panhandle. They went, oh, well, we send letters to you. No, it doesn't happen. We phone call you. No, how are you going to call us when you don't have our numbers? And we send someone knocking on the door. Doesn't happen. And you don't know they're going to explode until you get the third beep buzz, and then kaboom. We have video of literally the home shaking and the windows rattling. I was on a conference call 2 streets away from an explosion. My camera shook so bad my boss wanted to know if I was in an earthquake zone. If there was an earthquake happening. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know who to call. I've called fire department because Panhandle says, oh, we have a seismograph. If you have a question, call the fire department. They'll inspect it. So I took pictures of one of their explosions. There was no seismograph there. I sent it to a college buddy who's retired from USGS. There's no seismograph, based on the pictures I took. And I took about 15, so pretty good bet. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do because right now they're going to soon start building directly behind my house. It's 22 feet from my back door to the property line, and then 22 feet from there to there. So it's 44 feet. He said they have to notify everyone within 100 feet, 100 yards. It's not happening. So, you know, you guys are going to do what you're going to do. I get it's in the final stages. We're coming to this late. But I'm happy to talk to, I've reached out to Ryan. I've reached out to Panhandle. I'm getting nothing. So if there's someone here that's willing to talk, I'm all ears.
Hold on a minute, hold on. Sir, what company is actually doing the blasting? Do you know that?
Panhandle.
Panhandle's doing the
Yeah,
drilling and the blasting?
I called her. I think it's with a guy named Dan. I think he's the owner's son, or I left my notes at home. I got here so fast from work and changing here. I called and spoke. He's the one that said we do emails. Don't know how you don't have my email address. We do phone calls. We do regular mail. And I go on the our Facebook community page and ask the question. Everyone goes, no one's getting anything. No one knows. We don't know it's going to explode. You hear the buzz, 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 bang.
Okay.
So
Can you, hang on,
yeah,
we'll try to get you there.
yeah, I'll get you.
Steve, can you bring these folks together?
Yes,
and-
I'm not sure whom that gentleman is speaking with in Panhandle, but I'll go to the owner of Panhandle
Right, thank you.
and speak with Alan and make him aware of the situation.
Good. And,
It's a responsibility to do something with the dog.
Understood.
I mean, you do blasting, the burden of proof is on you. Not on the landowner.
I agree.
yeah, so if you could pull these folks together and have that conversation.
Because I know at least 4 or 5 other people here from the development also.
Sure. We'll
So
go-
this isn't just a one-person thing.
No, I get it. Well,
Okay.
we'll go try to get there for you.
Understood. And you know, just so you know, when my house was out of warranty, Ryan goes, oh, you're past your warranty. Something breaks, Panhandle goes, I didn't do it, you can't prove it. So how do I fix it if the foundation breaks?
Yes, sir.
What happens? It's all on me.
One thing I will say as well is ATF actually regulates the blasting.
Yes.
So ATF would be the contact, not the local fire department.
Well, they said they had a seismograph there that if something got damaged or something exploded, the fire department would want to know how much the exposure they used. In order to do that, you need a seismograph.
Mhm.
Well, taking 15 pictures and no seismograph in a picture, how do you? Maybe I
Yeah,
understand.
and that's the piece that ATF is supposed to be regulating.
Yeah. Like I said, if it was just me, you know,
I do have a conference call tomorrow with Ryan Holmes as well at 8:15.
this isn't
So
a
I'll-
Ryan thing. This is a Panhandle thing.
I was going to make both parties aware of your concerns. So.
Yeah, if you would, Steve, if you could reach back out,
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything else they want to add? I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
Move to close public. Move to close public hearing.
Second.
You get a second on that motion?
Second.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Goff to close the public hearing, and a second by Ms. Norton to close it. All those in favor?
All right.
Commission members, do you have any questions for Steve or anything else you want to address?
I don't.
So Steve, you'll follow up with that gentleman and then
Yes, I will.
probably ought to share that with the staff so that it comes back to the commission how it was.
Steve, when Steve sends the information, we'll add it to the next agenda packet after we get the information in for like a staff council discussion.
Okay.
So,
I do have Mr. Newcomer's email here too, so I could probably correspond with him via email and copy staff, and they could
Okay.
choose to do what
That's perfect.
what they want.
One final thing. Thank you guys for listening. This is enlightening and really makes me feel a little bit better. We'll see what happens. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council members, anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I have no questions, and I make a motion, we accept staff recommendation. Final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in amount of $584,217.60. Plats to be released upon receipt of surety.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendations for final plat approval contingent on receipt of surety in the amount of $584,217.60. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Cardinal Point, Section 3.
Yes, this is a public hearing, request for final plat determination. The project is Cardinal Point, Section 3, Phase 2, lots 153 through 160, 207 through 223, 234 through 243, and 255 through 266. The file number is 2204-107. The developer is Panhandle Homes and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located at the Falling Waters District, Tax Map 9, Parcel 11.7. The property is located along the north side of Hammonds Mill Road and west of St. Andrews Drive. This final plat proposes 47 single-family lots on 13.87 acres to be served by public water and sewer. Staff recommends that the final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, the final plat approval is contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $971,649.90. The plat is to be released upon receipt of surety.
Anyone to represent the project?
Steve Sion, Fox and Associates, representing the applicant.
Thanks. Again, this is a public hearing. Anyone else has any concerns? This, I would assume, is the same as the gentleman had the last time, the blasting. So Steve's going to take care of that with you guys. Anyone else have anything else to add?
If not, I'm in public hearing closed.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Goffer to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Norton. All those in favor to close the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Councilman, do we have anything that we want to add?
No questions, sir. I'll make a motion, we accept staff recommendation for final plat approval contingent upon receipt of surety in the amount of $971,649.90. And plat is to be released upon receipt of surety.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendations for final plat approval contingent on receipt of surety in the amount of $971,649.90. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next project is Wagner's Outdoor Express RV, a request for a waiver.
This is a public hearing for a request for waiver. The project is Wagner's Outdoor Express RV, file number 2205-148, tied to 2205-135. The developer is Wagner Estates LLC, and the engineer is Greenway Engineering. It's located in the Falling Waters District, Tax Map 7, parcels 166 and 166.2. The site's located at 128 Recreation Lane, approximately 600 feet southeast from the intersection of Grade Road and Williamsport Pike. The developer proposes the demolition of one existing structure, construction of a 3,500 square foot garage, and construction of an office/parts building. This site is currently served by public water and private septic. The developer is requesting a waiver to Section 504E, Table 5-4, requiring a maximum impervious coverage of 75% for commercial projects served by public water and private septic. The impervious coverage provided in Table 5-4 of the ordinance controls the relationship of lot size to the amount of improvements in green space. For developments using a private buried septic system, the value has been limited to 75% versus 80% when public sewer is available. The proposed waiver is premature, being no official recommendation or approval from the Berkeley County Health Department has been provided demonstrating that the proposed improvements do not influence or increase the existing septic system size or area. Also, the required residential to commercial buffer areas with screening have not been shown on the sketch plan. Additionally, engineering comments issued for the sketch plan require that all gravel or Gravel parking or display areas shall be considered as asphalt surfaces for the sizing of stormwater management facilities. A separate waiver request will be required for the gravel parking area, and engineering and planning staff recommends denial of the waiver until the applicant can demonstrate adequate septic areas, buffers and screening, and stormwater management areas.
Do you have anyone present to represent the project?
I'm Mark Mezzanotte from Greenway Engineering, representing the owners. We would like to table this if we could. Until we met with the staff, we heard what they said. We'd like to come back with some additional information and waivers at a future hearing. Thank you.
It is a public hearing, so we still offer for comments.
Yeah, so I think, so when we met with Mr. Mezzanotte, we explained that there would be two other waivers that would be required for that sketch plan that they presented to us to be compliant with our regulations. So I think his intention is to kind of hold this off on this decision for this waiver and submit a new waiver request, which will include this waiver and also the two new sections that will have to be deemed compliant.
That will be a public hearing as well.
Yeah, it'll be a separate public hearing, but it'll include all of the waivers. That way you guys can kind of see it as a package deal, instead of piecing it, together.
A motion to accept the engineering request to table this project of Wagner's Outdoor Express RV.
Yeah, well, maybe we should close the public hearing since it was that. Make a motion for that first?
Make a motion, close public hearing.
Okay, second. Do we have a first by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to close the public hearing? Now we'll take your motion.
Make a motion, we accept the engineering request and table Wagner's Outdoor Express RV request.
Do we have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to table the Wagner Estates LLC to a later date until they can provide additional information to us? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
So you'll see that again as a new waiver with all three waivers, or a new public hearing with all three waivers.
Okay. Next project is Willow Glen.
This is also a public hearing for a request for waiver. Project Willow Glen, file 2206-156, tied to 2206-150. The developer is MDGWG Inc., and the engineer is Integrity Federal Services. It's located in the Mill Creek District, tax map 6, parcel 73, and is located on the west side of Middleway Pike, across from Jubal Early Avenue. This project proposes 179 townhome lots on approximately 25 acres to be served by public water and sewer. The developer is requesting a waiver to Article 8, Section 801, Table 8-1A8 of the Berkeley County Subdivision Ordinance to reduce the minimum parking spaces per unit from 3 to 2.6 and the number of off-site parking spaces from 1 to 0.6. This waiver assumes that a garage is large enough to be used for all types of vehicles and or is not being used as a storage area. A combination of increased building setbacks and streets that accommodate parking could be incorporated in the development without the need for a waiver. Engineering and planning staff recommends denial of the waiver. So that was our staff report. That was it last week. Friday, we met with the developer and had a conversation of where we could meet in the middle to kind of be happy. So that's the paperwork that I gave you guys for this waiver. Basically, what the developer is proposing now is instead of counting the garage as a space and then counting the driveway as one space and then having the 0.6 spaces off-site, the developer is willing to make accommodations so two vehicles could park nose to tail without encroaching into the sidewalk or out into the right-of-way. Well, into the right-of-way, but not the right way. So that information is what's provided to you, and then if the developer is willing to meet those requirements that he's posed, staff, engineering and planning staff recommend approval of the waiver as long as those requirements are met. So it would be the, what's outlined in the new request, I guess, the new documentation. Not the one that's in the packet, but the one that was separate, if that makes any sense.
Have anyone to represent the project?
Lynch Christian on behalf of the developer. And before public hearings opened, if I could just clarify a couple things that Laura said. I did meet with staff on Friday of last week. We talked about ways that we could address a concern about parking. And so what we came up with, myself, Laura, and Doug, was to increase the setbacks on the units to accommodate 2 full-size vehicles, regardless of size, in the driveway, continue to provide garage parking, and continue to provide off-lot parking at 0.6 spaces per unit. So if you take that into account, it's a total of 3.6 spaces per unit, which is above and beyond the current Berkeley County ordinance. And it provides for, a number of parking scenarios where somebody could have 3 parking spots, or if they've got a work truck or something that's super large, most likely one of those off-site parking spaces is then available to them because others can park at their own driveway. So, and I'd just like to clarify that for anybody in the audience preparing to speak. So thanks.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. If you have any comments, please come forward, state your name and your address.
Donald Combs, Post Office Box 237, Inwood, West Virginia, 25428. I'm also a member of the South Berkeley Volunteer Fire Department. You can jam all you want to, but the fire trucks is coming through. I don't see why they're building on 2 hills. One hill. Where's the water going? You all got to look out for that. Reduce parking. It takes 2 in a family to make a living nowadays. Every one of you all know that. So you get a visitor. Where's he going to park? He going to park way down the street and walk? That's stupid. And I think they're stupid for trying to reduce the parking places at the houses. If I'm going to go visit any of you all and got to walk a mile, you're not going to get my visit. You'll get a phone call. And they start jamming the streets. The fire trucks, it's a safety. And you all got to look out for the safety. Because the in-town home is on fire. Fire truck can't get through there because they didn't do parking right. It's not the fire company's fault. Are they going to pay for all the damages and losses? So you all got a lot to think about on this one. And are they going to use Pocono Drive to get in and out? The homeowners that lives on Pocono Drive paid that. We paid to pay that. So if they're going to tear it up, no, I'll park something across Pocono Drive. They won't get there. This whole thing was done wrong in my book. This county needs to put zoning in here and building fees on these builders. Because y'all letting Berkeley County go to hell in a heartbeat. Because you're letting everybody come in, just take a piece of land, build on it. Storm water won't manage the water that's coming off. All that asphalt and stuff they're going to put there, where's the water going? Is it going down somebody else's well, a house, or whatever? Or is it coming out on 51? And, I don't understand how they're going to cram that. I looked at that field. And comes right up like this and goes down.
Yeah.
I've seen people get stuck in that field. So how are they going to put a house there? They got a natural gas line going right up behind it. They start blasting because you go 5 foot and you hit rock in that field. You blast, you blow that high pressure gas line out of there. I don't think their company's big enough to pay the debt. So I don't think they need to reduce spaces They don't need to do off-site parking. They need to put 3 parking spaces per house. That way, if somebody wants a car in the garage, they still have enough for visitors to come through. Because, just like I said, that end townhouse on fire, and there's vehicles in the way, it's not the fire company's fault.
Right.
Because we don't have the authority to smash a vehicle to get to a fire.
Right. So Don, did you hear what he explained to us, that they did work out an agreement on the parking? There is a garage parking space, and then 2 in front of the townhouse. So that's a total of 3 at each unit, and then an additional 0.6 off-street parking somewhere else. So
So
we
why do
have
they
3
need a
per unit.
.6 off-site parking, off-place
The
parking?
requirement of the ordinance, and the spaces actually won't be in the right of way or next to the right of way, they'll be off-site, like parking areas. So they're off
Well,
the
they
right of
ain't,
way.
I wouldn't come visit somebody if I couldn't park in front of your house. That's stupid. I mean, I don't get none of this,
Yeah. This is a still sketch plan, so, the stormwater, all of that stuff has to be addressed before it comes back for preliminary or final.
Well, somebody better go out there and see how much rock's in that field. I know how much rock's in that field. And there's places you're not gonna build on it.
No.
Because when the quarry shoots, all that rock vibrates.
I think we've heard that earlier on with the other two.
Yeah.
All that has to be taken into consideration. This is just for the waiver.
No,
He's
I don't-
addressed that.
I
so-
disagree with the waiver. No, I think all the parking spaces should be at the house. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Kemp. Anyone else have anything else they want to bring?
Seeing none, I move public hearing to close.
We have a motion by Mr. Goff to close the public hearing. Can I get a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Norton. Close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Council members, you have any questions?
Just if I can take a minute to
Yep.
address some of the other concerns that were brought up by the gentleman. Pocono Drive will not be utilized for the development. That's a private drive for a number of homeowners over there. I'm assuming he is one of them. There's no plans to use it. It's not a right-of-way that's deeded to the property. There is a geotech report for the property identifying rock, and the proper steps will be taken to mitigate the risk of blasting on site.
Thank you.
So you have met with staff last week,
Friday.
Friday. And I know you're before us often, but are you okay with accepting that without having anything in black and white?
We're fine with what the developers submitted today to us.
So you have had it submitted to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been having conversations since Friday,
Okay.
and we're satisfied. I think we're both in the same wavelength here. Developer did do one extra thing that I don't even think was mentioned here today, which was we did ask the developer to seek out to the transit authority to see if this would be on a proposed new stop or is it an existing stop. The transit authority does stop at the Dollar General, which is right a common route for this development. So there's also that to take into account, which we don't always have. So there is some parking reduction even associated with that. This wasn't added in at this time yet, but we do know that exists. So we feel confident in where we are. But there could not be asking the developer right now to do on-street parking in front of the townhomes would be wrong, mainly because there's no room to park in front of the townhouses because your lots are only 20 foot wide. Sure enough, somebody's gonna start blocking driveways. I mean, this is not the optimal solution, obviously, but it's a good solution, and it's a compromise between both of us. At least staff.
And at the end of the day, you're gonna have at least minimum 2 on-lot parking spaces.
Actually,
Maybe 3.
we've ended up with more parking here than we did a couple other times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's a good compromise if Mr. Bishop is okay with it.
And what I'm seeing there, Don, to address your additional concerns, is a 50-foot right-of-way. So which I'm assuming that,
There will be some streets that are 60-foot right-of-way and some streets that are 50-foot right-of-way. That's the newest exhibit submitted shows a variable right-of-way. It's dependent on the class of the street. But 60 max, 50 min.
What's going to happen about the natural gas line?
The natural gas line is avoided in the current sketch plans.
Vibration because of damaging.
that's-
Exactly right up along 51. They damaged it, power company had to evacuate food line, Cracker Barrel, and all of the other places. I mean, not Cracker Barrel, Waffle House.
Definitely understand his concerns. It's a typical risk taken in development. We do have a geotech on the property. Shenandoah Gas Company, formerly Shenandoah Gas Company, now Mountaineer Gas Company, is aware of the development plan, obviously, because they intend to serve the development. So the proper steps will be taken to mitigate that risk during construction.
Anyone else have any additional comments? I'll entertain a motion for acceptance or denial of the waiver request.
I make a motion, we accept the staff recommendation of the compromise that's been reached with the contractor, well, with the developer. And the engineer, you're okay with it and what you've been submitted?
Yes, sir.
When we write the result letter, I'll have a more detailed justification of
Yeah,
result
we just got this in
based on the
at
waiver
2 o'clock
request.
here today.
Yeah, so we can't change the staff report, obviously, because it has to be posted in a certain time period. But I'll make sure that the result letter, everybody feels good and happy and warm with it before it goes to record. But essentially, it would be 3.6 spaces per townhome, with 0.6 spaces being in the off-street parking areas.
And before, we do, there are two different entrances coming out on 51.
There will be, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There are two entrances. One is a shared use
It looked
driveway.
like the one was cut off a little short, that's why I was asking.
Well, the one is cut off short because it's part of a shared use driveway with the Dollar General.
Okay.
And so that property is not technically owned by us. We just have an easement across it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to accept the revised waiver as outlined by the county's planning department and the developer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The final public hearing this evening is 109 Tavern Road. It's also a request for waiver.
So yes, this is also a public hearing for a request for waiver. The project is 109 Tavern Road, file 2206-152. The developer is Dr. Lance Pittman, and the engineer is Fox and Associates. It's located in the Hedgesville District, tax map 41, parcel 45.7, and is located on the north side of Tavern Road, approximately 830 feet east of Rockcliffe Drive. This project proposes a 1,886 square foot addition onto an existing 3,342 square foot medical building on 0.9 acres, which is currently served by public water and sewer. The developer is requesting 3 waivers to the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance. One is section 503B, which requires a 75-foot front setback, a 15-foot side setback, and 25-foot rear setback. Section 801.1, Table 8-2, which requires access aisle widths to be a minimum of 24 feet. And Section 801.6.b, which requires an 8-foot parking setback from all exterior property lines. Engineering and planning staff recommends conditional approval with the following conditions. Revise the proposed addition width to comply with the 15-foot side yard setback by lengthening the proposed addition, And B, revise the location of the handicap accessible parking to be in a less congested traffic area and provide at least one of the two accessible spaces as van accessible with a width of 11 feet.
Thank you. Do you have anyone to represent the project?
Steve Sianovich with Fox and Associates, representing the applicant. I'd also like to add that Dr. Lance Pittman is here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Mr. Lewis, I do have some materials I'd like to pass out, either after you close the public hearing or at whatever
Let's
time
see
you'd
what
like.
getting comments and then we'll go from there.
The stuff that you sent, because I already printed it out and they should all have it. It's the one that's paper clip.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have some full-size copies of that.
All right. Okay, this is a public hearing. If you have any comments, please step forward, state your name and your address, and share your comments.
Seeing none, sir, make a motion we close public hearing.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour to close the public hearing, and a second by Ms. Thornton. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. Okay, Steve, you want to share your comments? And
I have some materials here, and I promise I'll go through them very quickly. Thank you. And I think it might be best, I'll bring the phone core up close if you don't mind, and I'll point to some of the documents on, or some of the materials that are within that. I'll add them on the phone core. What I passed out was an 11-page document, and I'll go through this very briefly. The first page includes items 1, 2, and then 3 is at the top of the second page. And the black text, items 1, 2, and 3, are exactly what is contained in the staff report. But the red is what I prepared as supplemental information, where I wanted to explain the extent of the waiver that's sought. And if I could just take a moment and read those, I'll be brief again. The front requires a 75-foot front setback, 15-foot side setback, and 25-foot rear. The existing building, what I wrote as supplemental data, the existing building encroaches into the front and side building restriction lines cited above. The building expansion proposed is compliant with the 75-foot front building restriction line and the 25-foot rear. The waiver sought with respect to the proposed addition is relief to the 15-foot sideline to 11.8 feet, a 11.8-foot side BRL. The location and extent of where relief to the 15-foot side building restriction line being requested is graphically depicted on the attached BCPC meeting exhibit. That's actually page 3 of your handout. That's an 11 by 17 document. And I'll go to the foam core, or the exhibit here. The existing building is surrounded in the blue text here. The 75-foot building restriction line severs the existing building. My guess is, I don't know the exact date of the construction of this building, but we're guessing the early 80s. I'm not certain there was a 75-foot restriction line in place at the time the building was constructed. That would have been the 1975 subdivision regulations. And when I perused those, I couldn't find, and I'm first to admit I'm not very familiar with those, because we just don't go back to the 75 regulations too often. But I didn't see where there was a building restriction line of 75 feet imposed in the 1975 regulations. Also call your attention to the green line that's around here at the site in totality. Again, 75-foot front cuts through the existing building. 15-foot side cuts through the existing building. 25-foot rear We would not be seeking any relief on the rear setback, as the addition that's proposed is compliant to that rear setback. I also call your attention to the side of the existing building, that currently the building is 9.47 feet, or 9.47 feet and 9.37 feet respectively from the property line to the edge of the building. So that is not compliant with the 15-foot setback. This, in my opinion, would be really a non-conforming use, since I don't believe it would be appropriate to have an applicant take action on an existing building that has been existed for, I guess we're approaching 40 years now, and there was never any issue with regard to setback. And you also see the red box on this same exhibit is the proposed building addition. We tried to slide that building addition over as far as we could to increase the side building restriction line relief that we're seeking. And the best we could do would be 15 foot required down to 11.8 feet. And I'll get into why that 11.8 feet is something we had to pursue in a moment. I may continue. I'll go to number 2. Number 2, it references table 8-2, which requires an access aisle width to be 24-foot minimum. Again, back to the exhibit, which was contained on page 3 of your handout. We're seeking relief from, the waiver sought is to reduce the access aisle width from 24 feet to 22 feet. And we have some geometric concerns, whereas we have really only about 24 feet from where the sidewalk would be proposed along the existing building to the property line. At present, there's some paving that is utilized for this property that physically exists on the adjoining property. And that adjoining property owner is 111 Tavern Road. And the last page of your handout should have contained a letter where Dr. Craig Meadows signed it, and he provided, was kind enough to provide us a recommendation, or where am I looking for? Support of the waiver that we're seeking tonight, the waivers that we're seeking tonight. And lastly, number 3, the waiver being sought, the staff report contains section 806.6.b, which requires an 8-foot parking setback from all interior property lines. And I make reference to the reference section, in my opinion, should be 801.1.6.b. The parking spaces are compliant with this requirement, but the access aisle is not compliant. The relief sought is a reduction from 8 feet from the access drive or aisle paved surface to the property line to 2 feet from the access drive or aisle paved surface to the property line. The location and extent of where relief to the 8-foot parking setback from the property line is being requested is graphically depicted on the attached BCPC exhibit. Again, going back to page 3 of your handout. And if you look, the blue area that's bound, the existing parking is bound in blue within your exhibit. You can see that the parking or the pavement surface actually goes over onto the lands of Dr. Meadows. We would look to only have, we can meet the 24-foot drive aisle width to the rear of the property to include where we're double loading parking, and also to the rear of the property where additional parking, double loaded parking is proposed. Where the problem comes into play is the 22 feet, which is effectively what we have now for the most part, as far as getting in and out of that facility. All of you may know that WIC, Women, Infant, Children, is actually in that building right now. I know there's a lot of material in here, but I just wanted to hit the highlights because I know you have other things on the agenda. As far as the engineering and planning recommendations, quite honestly, we have some concerns with meeting those, and I'd like to take a moment and explain. The first recommendation or condition that was developed by engineering and planning staff reads, revise the proposed addition width to comply with the 15-foot side yard setback by lengthening the proposed addition. And I call your attention to page 10 of the handout. That's also an 11 by 17 document that has a red box around it. That red box is representative of the building addition. That building addition is proposed to house what the orthodontist refers to as the treatment bay, where you could see there's a depiction of the patient chairs in there, and there's a center island where there'd be dental equipment storage and things like that. Also go on to say that this layout was done in accordance with the CDC guidelines in terms of minimizing any passing of contaminants from one party to another, for example. So again, back to this exhibit, there's a 41.15 foot dimension on the far right of the exhibit. If we were to scrunch that down a couple of feet in order to meet the 15-foot setback, we would then obviously have to bring the patient area would have to get narrower. Therefore, we wouldn't have adequate room as recommended by the CDC for spaces between patient surfaces. Unfortunately, again, back to the exhibit that was sheet 3 of your handout, we can't push the building or the red box any further to the east because we'd encroach into the parking field. The other engineering and planning staff recommendation that was made was revise the location of the handicap accessible parking to be in a less congested traffic area and provide at least one of the 2 accessible spaces as van accessible with a width of 11 feet. I believe County Engineer Smith's concern was the parking spaces, handicap parking spaces are located here, which is close to Tavern Road. The way the grade exists on the building today, it's a crawl space construction. It's not a slab on grade, it's not a basement, it's a crawl space construction. That grade falls from Tavern Road to the back of the property. And it's pretty substantial. I stopped on my way today down here just to look at it. Looking at the drawings, one thing, seeing with your own eyes is another. The reason the handicap parking spaces are there, or should be there in my opinion, that area is the highest in elevation. And this being a crawl space, there isn't currently an at-grade access or a handicap accessible route. A couple of the pages in the report showed some pictures of the stair tower. So if someone were handicap wheelchair bound, for example, I'm not sure how they get in the existing building today. So under our plan, we proposed to leave the handicap spaces where we have them noted on the plan, reconstruct a ramp to get up into that main entry door. And as you may know, the geometry of the ramp is defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act, where we can't have that run greater than, a rise over run of 1 to 12, nor can we have a vertical height increase greater than 30 inches unless we have a landing, a 5x5 landing, a rest area, and then we can continue up again, no greater than 30-inch rise. In this particular location, we're able to achieve the ramp run that's necessary in order to get to the entry location of the existing building where the main doors are today without needing to place a rest area. In other words, the geometry is just right for that ramp to be placed, have a run of 30 feet, which would give us a rise of 30 inches, and have that handicapped person be right at the front door of the facility. Should we try to take that ramp and flip it, my target elevation at the main entry of the building remains the same. What the problem becomes is the parking area is lower in elevation. I exceed that 30-inch difference. Therefore, we'd have a longer ramp and have to have a rest area in that ramp. What I included in my additional supplemental information was I spoke to Dr. Pittman about how many handicapped patients he has at this point, and it was truly a handful. I think it was 3 he mentioned. My point is, when we look at use of handicap parking, now granted, there's probably some examples any of you could cite that would prove me wrong on what I'm about to say, but more often than not, I believe in the orthodontia practice, that the handicap spaces will probably be the lesser use spaces compared to a doctor's office. He was an orthopedic surgeon, for example. Primarily these, I believe his patients are 75% of them or so are 25 years and younger. Then the other 25% would be somewhere from 25 years to whatever age. So my point is, if the concern of the county engineer was to have a party backing out of these handicap spaces close to the entrance onto Tavern Road, I think we would find that those handicap spaces would be lesser used than they were if they were unsigned regular spaces that would see more frequency of use during the course of the day. I realize I condensed everything I wrote in this letter, but I didn't want to take too much of your time. And that's really all I have at this point. If there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Steve, that area that you designated as your handicap areas, that relatively today is relatively flat.
It is. As you're aware, we have that 2% in all direction rule.
Yeah, but I mean, I just had the opportunity today to look at the site myself on my way through. So I knew that front portion was relatively flat and everything else just kind of flows.
Then it tails off once you get past the
Yeah,
entry door.
and you know, a lot of those buildings down there were built about the same time period as that area was developed. There's residential across the street, which is in the city of Martinsburg, but there's a lot of commercial buildings, you know, right beside these structures.
Many of them are medical themed as well.
Yeah, all the way down through there. So, you know, the side setback, we're not imposing on a family is what I'm saying. We're not pushing over onto a residential space. It's another commercial space.
Yeah, a medical use, it's a
Yeah,
podiatrist.
so I didn't personally, I don't have a problem with that. You know, if it would be residential, you know,
Understood.
but I don't know, staff, you guys want to?
Well, I will say, so when the waiver was presented to us, like, I'll just want to clarify, it's not engineering or planning's position to impose new setbacks on existing structures. So that's just how the waiver application was submitted to us. So that's how it was written, how it was presented. So the 15-foot setback is the only section that's actually non-compliant with the addition is non-compliant with the current ordinance. And I think that that's the least of planning and engineering's concerns as it relates to the waiver requests.
Can I make a quick comment on this? Laura's absolutely right. One of my coworkers prepared this
Could you say that
application.
again?
I will for the record. Laura is absolutely correct in what she said.
Thank you.
I'm gonna fall asleep.
Well, one of my coworkers prepared this application, and that was the purpose of my red text on page 1 to clarify the extent of the waiver sought. And again, it goes back to relief from a 15-foot side restriction to 11.8-foot side restriction. Thank you.
It's kind of hard to read on these drawings, and I'm sure it's probably not much better on that one, but the handicapped parking, it looks to me like it says it's only 8 feet wide. Are you using the area between the two spots as additional access?
The ADA requires for van accessibility. It's been my experience, you have an 8-foot stall with the handicap symbol on it. To be van accessible, you have another 8 feet, and then you have another space that would be 8 feet.
So it's 8, 8, and 8.
8, 8, and 8. On this plan, we actually have it as 8, 5, and 8, but this was a plan that was prepared under the initial application process. Quite frankly, I didn't alter the background drawing. I was the one that added the blue, the red, and the green coloring for purposes of this discussion. But I see no issue with making those spaces van accessible, van compliant.
So 8, 8, and 8, not 8, 5, and 8.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
8, 8, and 8. And quite frankly, it just means another 3 feet on what we have there now, so it's not really a deal breaker.
And then I see that halfway, I guess maybe between, well, a little bit more towards the left side of the new addition, there's another handicap spot. Is that correct, or is that just right at the end of the green and start of the red? Or the blue and the red, I guess maybe. It seems like there's a handicap spot listed there.
That's actually just a no parking area.
Okay,
In order to have access to the sidewalk that gives, like employee entry, for example, to the building.
okay. A ramp up to the,
Right, but again, that ramp would not be an accessible route ramp, because you could see that there's actually a stair tower shown to get to that, so it wouldn't be handicap accessible.
Thank you, Commissioners. Anyone else have any comments they'd like to add? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
I don't have anything. I'll make a motion that we grant the waivers that were requested for 109 Tavern Road.
Second. I have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour, second by Mr. Goff to accept the waivers. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a good evening.
Next item on the agenda is final plat determination for Meadows at Riverside.
Yes, this is a request for final plat determination for Meadows at Riverside, filed 2203-097. The developer is Meadows at Riverside LLC, and the engineer is Frederick Seibert and Associates. It's located in the Flowing Waters District, tax map 7 and 11, and parcels 169 and 4. This property is located on the southwest side of Broad Lane and the north side of Shale Pit Drive in the Flowing Waters Tax District. This project proposes 260 single-family lots on 73 acres to be served by public water and sewer. No waivers or variances for this project have been requested. On June 2nd, 2022, County Engineer Doug Smith stated that a review of the above-mentioned project was completed and found to be in compliance with the Berkeley County subdivision ordinance. The final plat meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the August 1st, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Do you have anyone here to represent the project?
Good evening, Ed Schreiber with Frederick Seibert and Associates, representing the applicant.
Planning Commissioners, anyone have any comments or any questions that they'd like to address on Meadows at Riverside? The engineer?
How far back Broad Lane is this?
Pretty far back.
Pretty far back, just about to the end of Broad Lane till you turn right onto Shale Pit Drive, I think it is.
There's not public water back there today.
Correct. Water, we have to bring water back, approximately 1,300 feet from this back to the site.
Okay. I'm gonna sit there and scratch my head. I'm like, there's not public water back there.
Thank you, Mr. Anybody else have any additional comments? I do have one. Can you point out the two entrances on this?
I can be better than that.
I mean, it's kind of tough to read all these things, but
There's actually only one entrance, and I was gonna bring this up because the staff report says that there's no variances or waivers that were granted. There weren't any with the major plan change that was approved because this project was granted extension, and did a major plan change. And that project previously had granted a waiver for one entrance. So what this body approved, there were no waivers that were approved under this planning commission administration, but there was previously from what this project was plan changed. front, if that makes any sense. We've seen this one other time. That decision was made, I think, in 2018, which allowed this to move forward with one entrance.
Okay.
This will be automatically out here. And two access points here that comes down into a boulevard with a median. Correct.
There was a traffic impact study that was done for this site, which incorporates upgrades for the intersection of Broad Lane and Remember, plus upgrades in front of that subdivision on Broad.
Okay. Commissioners, anyone else have any other comments they'd like to bring up? Questions for Ed?
I mean, I feel a little bit better having the boulevard back through there, but I can tell you, well, I'll keep my comments to myself. I'm probably the best thing to do, but I'm not really in favor of having one entrance out of this subdivision with that amount of homes. I think it's a safety hazard and it's access issue. And I won't go back and reverse what a previous planning commission did. I would not recommend that. I think that's fair.
Is there the possibility that the boulevard could be made wider than what would that be? Each side though, but
I don't think that would help.
you don't think that would help?
I mean, all you're doing is just making the larger opening. That's your, you know, the whole thing behind the two entrances was one, a safety issue, a backdoor sort of issue, and two, you know, another valve to get people out and directed in another direction. Here, if you did have to, they'd still be coming out on the same road. More than likely, one would just, you know, turn left, the other would turn left too. At some point, a near intersection is going to see all the traffic from it anyways. Not to say that I disagree with you, do. What I'm saying is, when you have two entrances on the same road, it's kind of like kissing your sister to say, you know, to give you the example. It's not the ultimate, but the boulevard, I don't think in this case would help that much unless you're willing to carry 2 lanes each side all the way back.
All the way back.
And if it helps, I think that this subdivision was originally approved in like 02, 03, 04. The density was even higher.
For two.
Much higher
For two entrances.
for one entrance.
For one entrance. Oh, okay.
I'm talking, I think,
So
500, 700 homes in that
Oh, it's
area.
twice.
Yeah.
it was a townhouse development.
Yeah. So the density
Believe it or
is
not,
much
on one
less
entrance.
than what was originally approved.
Okay. Thank you.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah. I think we are.
Make a motion, we accept staff recommendation for final plat determination advertising for a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the August 1, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Kokenar, second by Mr. Goff, to accept staff recommendations for final plat determination and advertising of a public hearing for consideration of final plat approval at the August 1st, 2022 Planning Commission. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Hey, could I see your plat there one more time? Give it a little better look at it. Let me just kind of look at it. I'll give it to you.
You can have it.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
Right, the final project this evening is preliminary plan approval for Owens self-storage.
Yes, this is a request for preliminary plan approval. Projects Owen Self-Storage filed 2202-040. The developer is Bob Owens and the engineer is D.A. Stansberry. It's located in the Falling Waters District, tax map 7, parcel 22.2, and is located on Williamsport Pike north of Great Road. The developer is proposing a self-storage facility on approximately 0.88 acres. Water and sewer utilities are not proposed. At the January 18th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, the developer was granted a waiver to section 801.1.10 of the subdivision ordinance requiring all driveways which provide ingress and egress to off-street parking areas to be paved. On April 12th, 2022, County Engineer Doug Smith issued a letter of approval stating that a review of the above-mentioned project was completed and found to be in compliance with the subdivision ordinance. The preliminary plan meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, therefore staff recommends approval of the preliminary plan.
Have anyone to represent the project?
Kirk Stansberry. Mr. Owens is also present.
All right, thank you, Rob. Planning Commission members, do you have any questions for Dirk on Owen Self-Storage?
Hearing none, I'll make a motion, we accept staff recommendation for approval of the preliminary plan.
We have a motion by Councilman Gokenhour and a second by Mr. Goff to accept staff recommendations for approval of the preliminary plan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your best for last.
Staff, anything?
Yeah, so the only thing I have to say tonight is, these 3 waiver requests that you saw tonight really wore me and Doug out in the past 3 days. We've gotten to the point where, so when a waiver comes in, the application comes in and we advertise it at the next 21-day period. We write the staff report, weeks before and fill it in after him and I get together and kind of decide on the recommendation. So we really only have to go off the application and the request for consideration. We have our usual suspects with vagueness, and we kind of have to read between the lines, and that's when you see our staff recommendations. And then on Thursday, when the staff reports go out, everybody wants to meet with us on Friday, and they want to talk about it, and they want to rush, and they want to come to a common ground so they can come to one planning commission meeting and move forward instead of having something tabled X, Y, Z. So with planning commission's blessing, Doug and I are kind of at the point where if you don't set up a meeting with us to discuss your waiver and what you're submitting and our feelings about it, at least a week before we write the staff report, which we write the staff report the Monday before, or at least we try to have it done the Monday before. We send it out on that Thursday. Then it kind of is what it is. What our staff recommendation is what stands, and we're not going to rush to meet with people Friday before planning commission meeting on Friday or on Monday. All of that supplemental information that you saw, we got it at 9 o'clock this morning and as late as 3 o'clock this afternoon. And it's a headache because we're all busy, and the last thing I want to do is chase paperwork around to submit to you guys when they've had 3 weeks since the waiver submission to meet with us.
The last waiver that you remember put to house development, that was sprung on me at 5:30 down here at the hall.
For Fort Evans, they literally jumped us at
The
5:30.
engineer basically buried down on me. You need to change here's what we want, you know. And what we're trying to do is.
Personally would be in favor of that because then we don't have to sit and listen for 15 minutes.
It's miserable because you.
And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to Steve, but of why his
Well,
justification.
no, our whole thing is it's miserable for us and for you too, because we'd rather them meet with us ahead of time. We're not.
Everyone knows we try to meet in the
We
middle.
don't need to sit here and say, denied, you can't do it. We would rather it be like the first thing where we kind of say, yeah, okay, we did want this out ahead of time, we
Yeah.
tried to. So that you see that they're asking for a waiver, but we've tried to compromise, we've met in the middle, we've tried to look at everything, unless there's something egregious. I mean, I can't agree with adult entertainment in front of an elementary school. I mean, there's no waiver there. But
Yeah, so what we're kind of asking for your blessing is basically have a meeting with us when you submit your application for your waiver. What you see is what you get, or they're gonna have to ask you guys to table it to the next meeting because we're too busy and too slammed to stop our day to work on 2 waivers for, honestly, 2 developers that should know better because we work with them every single day.
Yeah, that's kind of,
Not, it is what it is.
they know the drill.
Yeah.
We try to help everybody out within reason, but we can't put ourselves out to try to help somebody when they've had a month to kind of gather this together.
So
I
they're
shouldn't
just
have
making.
to write applications. I shouldn't have to fill out applications for people fully for Sarah to send the ad. It needs to be detailed, and it's like kind of gotten out of control.
So they just see there's something that doesn't fit the regulations and they just do a waiver and send it in and they don't even talk to you guys about it
Two of
first.
these
That's
waivers,
right. I mean,
two of
quite
these waivers
frankly-
tonight, they actually asked me about it, and I told them that we would not recommend approval of it, and they still brought it in, and then there were still issues when we recommended denial of it.
Yeah, we'll get
So it wasn't a
asked in a
surprise.
passing kind of conversation sometimes about the waivers, they would be like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, we can't really make comment on something because we don't have anything in front of us to look at, so.
Yeah, sounds like policy
I mean,
definitely needs to change on the waiver.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like annoying that we even have to tell people that they should meet with us before submitting a waiver, or submit it and then meet with us the next week.
Right, you
Well,
have
then
3
do it-
weeks.
Let's do it
The
this
thing
way.
about it is, if they would meet with us before they even submit, if they know they need a waiver, okay, come down here.
Yeah.
Set the meeting up, and we'll, instead of writing the waiver twice, which is what they end up, or 3 times in these cases, today were 3 times, they could have had the meeting with us 2 weeks ago. Laura and I could have said the same thing we told them in the meeting, which was, here's where we are with it. This is where we'd like to be. Take it, or whatever, and they were like, okay, well then they would have only had to write it once and send it in, and there wouldn't even have been any extra work.
Yeah, on Friday it was rainbows and sunshine, but the
Right.
packet had already been out, so I can't
Yeah, that's what
amend the
they want us
staff
to do,
report
is
like
rewrite
that.
the staff report after it's already issued.
So why don't
You can.
you, Doug, and Brian write up your recommendation, or at least come to a consensus of what you need, and then send that out to the
Developers
engineering.
roundtable listserv,
Yep,
yeah.
send
Yeah.
it to them.
And copy all of us on
I
it.
just
They
wanted
know
to make
that the
sure that it
commission's
was
aware of
okay
it.
that we do that and talk
Right,
to you
'cause
guys
there is
before
no
we
real
did it,
procedure in the book for it.
because it will be new. They're not used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at this point, it has to.
Well, they
it
have
has
to
be
respect
done.
your all's
We
time
give
as well.
too many waivers to not
Well,
have
I mean,
policy.
we've had
Yeah.
some waivers, and this is,
I
I
mean,
mean, from
Some of
very
this will go
regular
away
people
with the
that
new-
appear before you. And
Yeah.
the waiver
Well,
says,
Their
I don't
waivers
have
like
enough
that, it's
parking,
gonna
I
get
need a
more
waiver
restrictive.
granted.
so they'll
That's
come
it.
in with more setbacks and different things like that. I thought, to think that to kind of not guarantee, but to think that you might have a favorable recommendation from you guys for a waiver, that they would want to meet with you. When did that change? I mean, when did they just stop coming in and talking to
It's
you?
because they don't have to drop it off anymore. They can submit it online. So usually what would happen is they drop the paperwork off
Okay,
and talk to somebody, but now it's all submitted online, so I only see the waiver when Sarah gets it and sends it to me, and then I'm like, well, what
And
is
it
this?
Literally, when she calls me for the staff report, I mean, we have our little system worked out.
yeah,
And she's getting ready for staff report, she'll start listing everything that I need, to start pulling together. And that's usually 3 or 4 days, which usually a Monday morning before she needs my stuff by Wednesday night. Well, I'm literally stopping Monday morning, dropping everything, looking at waivers, trying to come up with the justifications of yes, no, maybe so. And
Some
Yeah.
things we've already talked about.
Sometimes we kinda
some things
know,
we already know where
but-
each other stands. We've already talked about it. Three specific waivers, which were pretty detailed, in-depth, not cut and dry waivers. We're not talking a sidewalk waiver for something off the spectrum
Yeah.
road. We're talking detailed waivers. They did not send us any of the information or even the full information until today.
I mean, like the building waiver, I mean, we labored with, I labored with that, quite difficult. I mean, typically, you know, a non-conforming use, you don't make the use any worse, which is where we've always landed on it. And, you know, we tried to look at it from that point of view. I don't know where you guys are with it. I mean, where it came down to was, I went back to the basics. You don't make a non-conforming use any worse. That's where I am with it. That's the only thing, building code wise, fire code wise, that's the only thing I can, if you pin me down and say, why did you even say that? Well, that's the only reason I can give you is building code, fire code.
Not when they have property where they could accommodate the layout a little bit, because they do have property where they can build onto the back end. It's just not convenient for the doctor, which is fine. That's all you have to say, but the application, the request for consideration, the original stuff never said that until today.
Yeah.
So so we don't want,
So
we don't
it may
want
be
you
the-
guys to think that we're over here just saying no,
Well,
but
yeah,
we're
that's
working
all
with what
you-
we're working
You
with.
guys kind of looking back and forth at each other like.
Well, that's because they were talking about, I guess,
Well,
people
the
with
thing
wheelchairs
about-
don't go to the
there's-
dentist, I guess,
they don't have
basically
that
what he was
many
trying to
Yeah.
say, so,
patients.
you know,
Yeah.
You can't
that's,
say that.
Well, yeah. Well,
You
yeah. How
can't
can
say
they
that.
anticipate
It's
what
not
will be
in the
future?
code.
this is a dentist, not an orthopedic office, so handicapped people won't go to the dentist, so I was like, okay.
It does, we told them that when they called us. You can't say that. Don't dare say it in there, or I'm gonna get up.
Doug did tell him not to say it.
You can't,
But Steve did anyway.
you just,
Yes.
you know, and where I was with it, it's not the perfect situation, but, you know, I landed on this was the non-conforming use, you don't make any worse, that's always where the planning commissions go. And as far as the parking lot, yeah, I just don't like it, I don't think it's safe, but then, you know, they pulled out that deal, well, not that many people park there.
Well,
Yeah,
but if they come in Monday,
we'll
can't you
draft
say
something
no?
up and we'll send it out to everybody
Yeah.
just to give everybody a heads up, like, in the future with future
Yeah.
waiver submissions, please set up a meeting with us to discuss our feelings and our staff, because we can tell, you know, our staff recommendation will be approval, but ultimately it's up to the planning commission. But obviously they want to hear us say, we recommend approval. So we can at least tell people that after sitting down with them and looking at it.
Okay.
So we'll draft it up, we'll send it out. and
Because
we'll
that's
copy
why you're
everybody.
seeing a lot of the conditional approvals. We can't approve what they sent in, so we read between the lines, and I'm like, okay, well, we're willing to do this, this, and this, and her and I figure that out together and agree. Okay, you can have approval if you do this, this, and this, because the waiver application we got left a lot to be desired, so we try not to make you go back again, we try not to deny it, so it's kind of, you see what I'm saying? We're trying to keep the ball moving forward, so to speak, so that's where the conditional approval piece is coming in.
Okay.
I don't think it's unreasonable to tell them you can't come in here on Monday with stuff.
It's exhausting, I mean,
Like I said,
we're out today.
they've actually came right at 5:30 before the meeting and threw it down and said, you need to agree to this. Look at what we've done. And I'm like, you know, I'm trying to look at it, but I don't know what's in there. And, you know,
That's
it
not
wouldn't be
fair.
the first time someone pushed
Yeah.
the fuck by the door.
No, well, I mean,
Wait, and, you know,
we could say too,
We all try to be really.
we haven't had a chance to look at this.
Yeah, I mean, we walked
Yeah.
in and it's laying here.
Right, we can say, well, we haven't had a chance to
Well,
look at
that's
this
what, I
either.
mean, you know, yeah, it's just, there's just too much going on for us to drop what we're doing the day after a holiday when we have 20 emails after missing the 4th of July and coming in and trying to maneuver all of the logistics for a waiver,
Okay.
especially 3
Yeah.
tonight.
Well,
So-
I would support you in saying no, and if we
Works
come
for
in
me.
with a
We'll
packet.
Send, we'll
if
send it
we- yeah.
out, we'll
Okay.
draft it up, and we'll send it out to the round table and copy you guys on
All
it.
right, thanks. Council, you have anything?
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything?
Trying to get the
I move to
AC.
adjourn.
Got a motion to adjourn? Get a second on that?
Exactly.
All those who want to go, go. Okay, meeting adjourned at 7:21.
Chicken salad.
You guys weren't in here. You didn't work here when the AC was broken for like
All the
months
time?
in the summer.
Yeah, all the time.